hired like an actual community manager to talk with these people on a regular basis, people would be more inclined just through a Steam chat right to this, just like they had with Blizzard, for example. StarCraft did a great job with this, with balancing, for example. They had a community manager who was talking with friends, playing games with pros, constantly engaging, in tournaments and just community stuff, right? And they would just in private messages write to him, this is kind of like fucked, because of this and this reason. And they would have an active discussion instead of, kind of a player or a coach or something, to a point where they're compiling a bunch of evidence and have to record stuff and have to, make sure that the email is correct. I mean, some players will just say, I'm not going to give a fuck about that. Someone else will do it.
Yeah. That right there, like you've highlighted both sides of the coin right there. You highlighted it from the sense of where you found an issue, you have provided evidence, and you have provided that evidence to Valve, and they have fixed it, right? You just said a success story, and then the last thing you said is half the problem we have, right?
Yeah.
For the people who find the issues but don't know how to communicate it clearly, or won't communicate it clearly because they don't know how, or it's too much work, right? At what point does that change? Like, I get what you're saying. If we had a community manager from Valve, that's where we would go. But can we try for a second? And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have better communication. I've said it multiple times on this show already. Like, with the four of us here, can we have a quick little thought? And we're going to have to rack our brains real fucking hard on why Valve are not doing that. Why do Valve not have a community manager? Because what I hear and what I see is Valve should just do this better. Valve should just do that better. Valve should just do this, right? It all sounds simple when you're not the ones who are having to be the resource, or having to be the ones to organize, or having to be the ones to do it, right? Like that's always...
It doesn't even need to be Valve. It can be an extension source in ESIC, for example.
So we're talking about having somebody who the players, so almost like a union, you might say, Devil Walk.
Well, I'm not allowed in unions.
Yeah, look.
I mean, you are just not in the player one, so you can be in some other.
You can be in the coaching union.
Swedish people.
Can we be a talent union?
I don't think. No, we definitely don't have a union. We fucking all hate each other. But if we're going to look at this, right? Why do we think that Valve won't? And I know that you said it doesn't have to be Valve, but the fingers all get pointed at Valve. Right, like Prof Striker, you got anything here on why they wouldn't do
I just think it's kind of a hassle for them to have to explain themselves every step of the way through this. So I feel like that's why they are approaching the game the way that they are, where like it's not a discussion. This is how things are. This is how we see things, and you're just going to have to accept that, right? Well, if it was a discussion, then they will have to explain a lot of their thinking behind everything, and then obviously, that's a lot of extra work that they probably don't want.
But I mean, also just didn't we talk about?
Wouldn't it just make everything so much clearer that once it's been asked, it would never be asked again? And then instead of having all these unknowns and then making up your own, like, how did they think and how did they do this and how did they approach that? So it actually makes sense, it's not going to be like a constant same question thing, because at the end of the day, the people that are going to communicate is the ones that are affected the most. And also, this is not only going to benefit them in the sense of bugs and stuff like this. It's going to help develop their game in a better way. They're going to get ideas. They're going to get other influences to fix maybe bugs or like certain things that aren't like exploitable glitches, but maybe make sense to actually focus to fix.
I think not saying that it would be bad to have a person like this, just like continuing the devil's advocate side. One thing to consider is that even if, let's say, you talk as a community manager to the pro circuit, let's say pro players, the best players in the world, it's not like everyone is going to listen, right? We had this, was it yesterday or the day before, Simple tweeting like why they need to record POV demos. And that is something that I feel has been talked about enough to understand that like why that is now a thing. And it is a thing because of these coach bugs and all of these things that can be maybe only found through a POV demo and not from a GoTV demo. And to me, that sounds like super normal to everyone to know that, but apparently Simple isn't informed about that. So even if you have one person that is going to be talking to these people, it doesn't mean that everyone is going to be on the same page. So it's still going to be a lot of the same questions.
Of course, but at least we will have the opportunity for everyone to educate everyone with like more clear.
It would be better. It would be better. I'm just saying it's not something that you'd like snap your fingers and everything would be fine. But at the same time, I guess that person would get a large Twitter or whatever following. It would be pretty easy to get that information out there, but it still would be some part of that. People simply don't care until something blows up in their face. And I presume with Simple, it was he got fined for not recording POV demos in Blast. I think that's the obvious thing that come to mind based on his tweets, right?
Yeah,
I think that the thing with talking about like a community manager or having, you know, Valve with better communication, it's such an easy thing to do and say like all the things and how it could go right and like how we look at it from our perspective, right? Because it is something which to us, right, makes a lot of sense, but to Valve it obviously doesn't make a lot of sense, right? And this is the point I'm getting at, is there has to be reasons as to why they're not doing this. And if the reason is that they're just stubborn and they don't give a fuck, right? If that's the reason, then I'm backing the wrong horse, right? I don't know if that is the reason. Now, that's why I'm trying to spitball some conversation here that we can get flowing. Now, from what you were saying, Striker, right? You were saying that how do I summarize what you were saying without making it sound like they don't that they still care? I think the thing is, it's once we open the door, right? We don't know what's going to come through. And that would be the same thing that Valve are probably thinking is the sense of this sounds really bad and people are going to be like, yeah, but they should be, it's our fucking game. You sound like a fucking mob and that this is a politician that needs to do everything that you guys think. The situation here is this is a game developer who runs and supports a major of their game as a marketing tool. That is the only way that Valve market Counter-Strike. Is through that. The rest of the marketing is done by you cunts on Twitter, the teams, by God selling these guys to FPX and then FPX having an announcement, by us doing shows like this. We are all marketing for Counter-Strike, but in the competitive sense. Valve's marketing for their game and to get it into the spotlight is by running a big competitive event that you see and they promote it and there's stickers and there's ways for people to engage and it's in the game and it's to get people to catch on to competitive CS, right? So it works for everybody. But if Valve become completely beholden only to the competitive Counter-Strike community and the things that we say and dictate what we want and how it should be and all of those things, if you're Valve, you have to look at that as it's going to cause a lot of problems because there is a massive player base of Counter-Strike and not everybody only plays it to play competitive CS. A bunch of people, right? There is a bunch of people who play who play just surfing. There's a bunch of people who just like making maps. There's a bunch of people who love playing that fucking zombie mode, running around, screaming on their microphones with a Negev, right? We look at Counter-Strike as the hardcore audience through one lens, right? And we expect Valve to react a certain way because of our one lens. And that's the only way that we're seeing things and expecting them just to drop everything that they're doing and fix all of these things and communicate with us. Most of the time we act like a bunch of spoiled little brats and kids who can't even fucking read an announcement properly to see that the coaches are only disallowed from potentially just one event, right? We need to take a little bit of responsibility for the way that we're reacting to certain things and the way that we communicate, right? I don't like the thing of players going, yeah, I DM'd them on Twitter 4 years ago. Like, what do we say? Okay, so you DM them and you showed, where's the screenshot? Let me see if I can find this screenshot.
No, but I agree with you, Chad, but I also feel like it's more about not maybe persuading them to do everything that we think. But I think that it's important for people to feel that they are listened to and that they know. Just like, you're sending something and getting a response. No matter what the response is, that doesn't really matter. But getting the feeling that at least they have answered.
The acknowledgement, sure. Yes. It's like when you go for a job interview and then you don't hear a reply. It's like, well, what the fuck do I have to do, right? It feels hopeless. Look, I can definitely resonate with that, and that's where you're probably right. If there was a funnel, if there was a system that went from like top down, from like the pro body, the coaches, everybody, the pundits, into like the next, which is like, okay, well, we've got this guy and this guy. This guy's going to find the evidence for this, and he's going to send it to Valve. And I hit the mic again, so everybody. And this guy's he's gonna look at these rule sets, and he's going to send this to the TOs. Yeah, she's beautiful. But my point is that clearer lines of communication is kind of what we're working on here, right? And unfortunately, you would like to think that the fucking CSPPA, this player association, should be where we're pointing our attention for communication. You would think that the body that is meant to represent the competitive player base would be the people most likely to be able to talk to the body who make the fucking video game, right? Like,
yeah.
I feel like it's a communication issue, right? Like, isn't it 70% of arguments in a relationship start because of poor communication or misunderstandings?
Yeah, like, but that's where we are, and I think that's also why we sometimes feel spoiled or seem spoiled, is because we've tried to have maybe conversations in the past, but we feel completely ignored. So you have an overreaction to something out of context that just
also
looks
something
silly.
that happens in relationships, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm good at that. That's one of my keys, overreacting.
Yeah, but it just looks so silly, because some of these people might have actually legitimately tried to contact Valve, have conversations with them, but never been responded to.
Sure, and I'm sure, and that's happened to me. Like I've DM'd them on Twitter, as silly as that sounds. What was the thing that I sent them and asked? Hey Valve, loud obnoxious Australian here, big fan. Is there any chance we can look at adding a feature where we could change the delay of Go TVs on the relay side? Basically, this was something which was an issue where we couldn't have a certain amount of Go TV stuff so that I could do Skybox, record a demo, do this and do that, and then prepare everything for an analyst desk segment. I was asking for them to change something with the relays so that I could do some more stuff. I don't even think it was seen.
I think one of the things
it wasn't even seen.
Like a precedent that has been set here with this announcement today that people have kind of just like glossed over is the fact that coaches are being banned on different levels.
Yes.
Based on E6 report. So what this actually also means is Valve stopped applying their like one size fit all for bans, which is something that never happened before. If you look at VAC bans, if you look at match fixing, everyone got the perma ban forever. Doesn't matter how old you were, for how many matches, whatever. With this, I think this shows something very promising in my eyes, at least.
Progress.
Shows that if ESEC can continue to be like a valuable, I don't know, something in this space, that then Valve can rely on them to do a good job and then have these nuanced responses instead of what happened in the past, where, as we all know, like everyone has been permabanned. Doesn't matter how old, how young, how big of how many times it happened. So I think this is a pretty good thing that could, moving forward, mean that maybe not everyone gets punished inappropriately. Even with this, potentially someone is still going to be punished inappropriately, but it's closer to fairness, I feel like.
Yeah. I definitely like Valve using kind of like an external company like an ESIC. I'm not saying it has to be ESIC specifically. I'm just saying that it's kind of a good thing to see them take that route and just like literally take over like the points that they use to determine ban length and just like adjusting that a little bit for their own purposes. So yeah, it's that's definitely one way forward.
I want to try and